It's crazy times to be a Palace fan. I'll tell you that. There's a lot going on, and here we are going to discuss everything. The manager news. There are a couple names involved. One very exciting, one also controversial because of what I've seen on social media. Plus, as you can see from the headline, Aston Villa to Jean-Philippe Mateta interest, which is crazy. And you may say, oh, okay, it's just normal transfer interest, and it tends to happen with news articles coming out left, right, center. You know, he gets clicks for Palace, but it's coming from David Ornstein, arguably the most reliable journalist out there. He's not going to say something if there is actually something concrete behind it. And there's much more to that as well. We're going to get started with Jean-Philippe Mateta, as well as some other transfer interests. Of course, we've been linked with a striker from Angers. We got the latest on him, and the manager discussion towards the end of the show. That's going to be very, very curious, especially to hear what you lot think about that. As always, if you do enjoy the stream, please do hit the like button, subscribe, and most importantly, get involved in the comment section as well. Let's start off with the title of the show, and that is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who's been linked with a move to Juventus. It seems like Juventus's interest has died down because of Palace's demand. So for now, it doesn't seem like Mateta will be making the move over to Italy, but there's a big but. It might not be over to Italy. However, Aston Villa are interested in Jean-Philippe Mateta, according to David Ornstein. Aston Villa have expressed an interest in Mateta, and Crystal Palace have been evaluating a move for Evan Guessand, who, of course, is at Villa and joined them in the summer. And what makes them even more so interesting was linked to Palace before he did end up moving to Birmingham. Villa are studying Mateta as a striker option, and complex negotiations with Besiktas over Tammy Abraham. Palace wanted the 24-year-old last summer. So it seems like Aston Villa's deal with Besiktas over Tammy Abraham has gone sideways, and now they're looking at Mateta, who clearly wants to move away from the football club, hasn't signed a new deal. And this is where things get interesting, because Aston Villa, of course, a bigger club than Palace, and they are doing very well under Unai Emery. Have been interested in Mateta before. This isn't the first time it's been mentioned. I think what makes this story a bit more exciting is Evan Guessand being potentially involved in a deal. How does that work with the price that we'll get for Mateta? How much do you value? How much do Aston Villa value Evan Guessand? We don't know, especially in this current moment of time. Is Evan Guessand, or should Evan Guessand be involved in a deal with Mateta? There's also that, part of the story. But for me, Evan Guessand has been linked with Palace. However, as a striker, his numbers are not great. He was linked with Palace over in the summer. It didn't happen. There was a lot of drama involved, it seemed like, because it based on all the news outlets, Evan Guessand to Palace was very close, and Aston Villa comes in last minute and he joins Villa. And he hasn't had the greatest of times at Villa, even coming off the bench. I know recently, I think he came on against Everton. I didn't watch that game, the Villa-Everton game. But when I have watched Villa so far this season, and I've watched quite a few of Villa, he hasn't really, first of all, when he has come on, he's made minimal impact. And second of all, he hasn't really come on as much. So Evan Guessand is clearly not favoured over at Aston Villa. And I just, as much as we've been linked with him, and I understand that element, of course, we've been doing our scouting, you'd suspect based on what's been happening over in the summer. I don't know if I want Evan Guessand to come to Palace, because he really, even when he's come on for Aston Villa, he's come on out wide. I think we're sorted in the wide positions, especially down the right-hand side with Ismaila Sarr coming back and Brennan Johnson there. So if we're going to get rid of Mateta, I'd rather have the money and reinvest that money on an actual striker. We need a striker. Mateta leaving, despite what you lot may think about his performances, some people are saying, let's sell him now. Some people are saying, he'll come good. He's just in a bad run of form. He has played a massive role to us. And I don't think you take that gamble with Evan Guessand if you're selling Mateta, especially with what Guessand has been doing at Villa. Saying that, we have seen it. Kobe Mainoo, for example, at Manchester United. He wasn't favoured by the manager, Ruben Amorim, previously. But, you know, Michael Carrick comes in and you see his performance against City. Of course, managers have a big impact on the players. So Evan Guessand coming to Palace doesn't necessarily equal the same impact that he might have at Villa. Villa are more stacked. They have, you know, they are doing very well so far this season. So his opportunities have been limited. But yeah, as I've said, when he has come on, he hasn't really impressed me. And for that reason alone, despite us being linked with a move over in the summer, I'd rather go away from this. But it seems like Palace are interested. It seems like Palace are trying to find a solution to this and are involving Evan Guessand. But how much do you lot value the Mateta and Guessand deal? How much should we make? I don't know. It's going to be very hard. Palace reportedly won around 35 million euros, but if you're dealing with Villa, don't know, 30 million pounds or so, 30 to 35 million pounds. Of course, no one would truly know the actual figure apart from the clubs themselves. But if you involve Guessand, how much are you going to be getting? 10 million pounds? How much is Guessand now valued? I'm not too sure myself. I don't know how much Villa value Guessand, but one thing that is for certain, if Guessand comes, we're not getting the full price for Mateta. If it's not going to happen, Guessand is not coming to Palace on a free. He has a value towards him. And that's the reason why I'm thinking, could this overall package, if Mateta went to Aston Villa, be better used elsewhere than Evan Guessand? And I think if you do your scouting, then yeah, I think you can find better than Guessand or take the risk to go a different direction, especially with a player who hasn't really fitted in the Premier League just yet. But of course, what do I know? Some of you lot may agree or disagree. Let me know in the comment section. I'm going to go through it there. Mateta wants to play in Italy, but they can afford only peanuts. Exactly. It seems like that's not going to be happening. Mary also adding to say we can't afford any more risky options. Yeah, I mean, I think we are always going to take risks in the market because that's how we have operated, especially with all of the current batch leaving. We've took risks, and those risks have paid off. However, when you're talking about this kind of risk where you're seeing Guessand not really fitting in at Aston Villa, and also even if he did fit in as a striker, I don't know how many games he's played as a striker for Villa. I've only seen him play out wide. So yeah, and in his previous clubs, I don't think he's been banging in goals when he has played as a striker. I'll get the stats up in a few minutes' time. I'll have to search it whilst going through the comment section. But it's not the best replacement for Mateta for a striker. That's how I see it. That's how I see it in this current moment of time. We have done the homework on him, so we know about Friedman wanted him. As much as Friedman wanted him, Friedman's not at his football club. And also, as much as I love Dougie also wanted Matheus França, you know, and he was involved with a few other transfers. I'm not saying Dougie didn't do good for us, but just because Dougie wanted him, who's not currently employed by the football club, I don't think we should go down that route of just Dougie wanting him, because not all of his transfers were perfect. And right now we are in a clinical time where you have to analyze all options even more in depth to make sure, are you sure you're the right fit? Because we are losing the core. We're losing the core group, and we can't really afford to get many transfers wrong, especially if you're losing Mateta. So yeah, as much as Dougie wanted him, he's not here. Maybe if he was here, then I might lean more towards it. Our transfer business in the summer has been different to maybe what you saw previously, especially with how we handled a few stuff, Rapino, etc. So yeah, we have to move on from Dougie. Guessand is another Uche, just not good enough. I'd rather get David or Soloff, Strand Larsen than him. Strand Larsen has been linked from Wolves. I think that makes a bit more sense. And he has actually scored goals in the Premier League. I do think this season he hasn't been great for Wolves, but he really wanted to move away to Newcastle. That didn't happen. Wolves have been struggling all season long. I'd rather take the Strand Larsen gamble than a Guessand gamble because one, Strand Larsen is a striker. It sounds so basic, So simple, but here we are. Strand Larsen is a striker. Evan Guessand hasn't been playing up front, even though he can play up front. He's a pure striker. And two, Strand Larsen has scored goals in the Premier League for Wolves last season. He has. So if you want to take that gamble, which we discussed a few times now, with players joining and not joining with the greatest stats behind them. It's not all about stats, but, you know, if you haven't scored in lower divisions or in the current division, then we saw it with Nketiah, for example. Right now, we are struggling with him, but he wasn't a goal scorer in the Premier League. He comes to another Premier League club, us, and we're still having similar issues, even though he scored here and there. But yeah, when it comes to Strand Larsen, before his head was turned, before after the Newcastle move, where it collapsed, he scored 14 goals last season for Wolves. 14 goals in the Premier League, 4 assists. So he can do it. He can do it. But of course, we don't know if he can do it over a long period of time. But I would rather go down that route with taking risks than losing Mateta to Aston Villa and bringing in Evan Guessand. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. But as I said, it'll be nice to see how you lot think as well. I can't believe what your board is doing to this team, ripping it apart. You've been so good, bro. And that's from an Arsenal fan. Big up, bro. This was always going to happen at some point, but maybe not to this degree. I think it was a bit more controlled. You saw it Eze in the summer. Guehi's happening in January because of his contract situation. Otherwise, I don't think Guehi would have been sold if he still had time in his contract. But Mateta, I don't think we need to do it right now. We don't necessarily have to do it right now, which is what's our reason for that. Yes, he runs out of contract, not this summer, next summer. But in the summer, you can still move on Mateta and still have him for the next 5 months or so. Are we now... It's not like Palace have gone to Aston Villa. The story from David Ornstein is suggesting that Aston Villa have expressed interest in Mateta, probably from what they've heard from Mateta's camp. His agent's been working 24/7 overtime. And also Juventus were after him. So maybe Aston Villa thought, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Mateta, Premier League striker, scored goals. We might be after him. So we don't know exactly how strong the interest is, but the interest is there. And they have been interested before. But yeah, maybe Mateta wants to leave. And that's the reason why these talks are not going away with Mateta. But yeah, it is a shame. It is a shame with everyone leaving. I think a lot of the Mateta stuff is his agent driving things. And sounds like JP definitely wants to move. 100%. I agree with you, Warren. 100%. It's his agent. And his agent has been working overtime, not only in January, over in the summer, in between games, just constantly about this contract situation. For the past year or so, it hasn't gone away. And that is his agent. However, when David Ornstein is involved, he's not going to release a story which is BS. If he's saying that Aston Villa are eyeing Jean-Philippe Mateta, he's not saying that Mateta is joining Villa. He's not said that. Then there must be interest there, because David Ornstein is not going to come out from just Mateta's agent. You know, he is very reliable, unlike Fabrizio Romano, which we've seen in the past, just spouting nonsense from left, right, centre, all parties, just to get a few likes and retweets. So yeah, just quickly, because there is a lot I do want to get into. Managers linked, and a current Premier League manager has been linked, and a Championship manager also linked as a potential replacement for Glasner. What are we saying then in terms of this deal? How much do we value Mateta plus a Guessand deal? What would make you happy if this was to go through? £10 million plus Guessand, would that be enough? 15? What are we thinking? I don't think we're going to get significant money. And Aston Villa right now have to be sensible also with their transfer business, because they are, they have spent quite a decent amount of money and they have to be smart with their moves. So I think they will be looking to get Mateta for as less money as possible and try to, up Guessand's value in that process. But what we think of 45 million for Mateta, that'll never happen with Guessand. I don't want Guessand. I don't want to lose Mateta. Fair enough. I was thinking the same trade with 10 million pounds. We have to get at least 30 million for Mateta. Yeah, I'm with that as well. I think we should get the money for Mateta. I don't think Aston Villa will pay that money in this window. Let's see. But I just don't see it happening, 30 million pounds or so, especially if it's another Premier League club. Surely we won't be dumb to lower the price and sell him to another Premier League rival. So let's say 30 million pound worst case scenario based on reports. Villa going to pay that? I don't think so. And if they don't, I don't want Guessand as a Mateta replacement. That should be a whole separate deal. I'd rather get the money £30 million minimum, 40 million or nothing. Evan Guessand can only do better, money only. So yeah, Villa don't have £30 million. People have looked at their books. Exactly, they don't. So if the Guessand deal was not involved, I think this whole Mateta to Villa thing just gets shut down. So let's see what happens over the next few days. But of course, we have been linked with strikers despite that move. And let's move on to the next report in terms of transfers. Actually, before we do that, I'll just need to note something down here. Okay, and that is on Angers striker Sidiki Cherif, who of course has been rumored with a move to Palace over the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I'm losing count of time because so much has been happening over this period. So the latest bid, according to reports, is a €3 million. This is from Palace to Angers for the striker, 19-year-old. Is €3 million loan fee plus €12 million obligation to buy in the summer. However, the French club want a package closer to €20 million. So it seems like we're still far off it in terms of a deal. We want him on loan. So basically, what we're doing is what Juventus was doing to Palace with Mateta, with the loan fee and obligation, because Juventus reportedly wanted Mateta for £1.7 million. And then if they qualify for Europe, they'll pay like 24-25 million pounds, which wasn't enough. And we're basically doing the same apart from the qualification to Europe part. So yeah, negotiations are still going on. It would have been nice to bring in a forward in this week. However, the player is keen on a move, according to reports as well. So I guess only time will tell if this deal does go through. But I think surely for us not moving away from this deal and persistent with it, I think a middle ground will be found. And I think Palace are just trying to play the long game, really. So yeah, let's see what happens with Sidiki Cherif, who I think will have an impact, not as a Mateta replacement, but as a Uche/Nketiah move, because I do think one of them will be going back. I think Uche should be going back. I don't think we'll be signing him on a permanent deal with how his loan move has gone. And then also Nketiah, could he get sold in the summer? So I think we're trying to shuffle our striker options, but I don't think this is directly linked to Mateta anyways, because a 19-year-old striker who hasn't got bags of experience to replace Mateta would be a silly move, and I don't think that would be the right way. And it doesn't seem like it based on reports. Strand Larsen has been linked a few times. If we were to sell Mateta for a fee, it might be Strand Larsen coming in, which makes a bit more sense than a 19-year-old striker. So yeah, D, we need to buy starters. Yeah, we do need to buy starters, but we also need to shuffle our depth options. And I'm not only talking about striker, left back, left wing back. We'll see with the next manager. But Sosa isn't good enough for the Premier League. So we are going to have to improve in different areas of the pitch. And I think we've noticed the Nketiah experiment, should I say, hasn't worked out so far. So, we're trying to potentially move him on. There was talks about January move, but of course he's been out injured. West Ham were linked with him, which is not going to happen from here onwards because they've already signed a striker. So I think there'll be some shuffling with the depth options. And I think Cherif, who is 19 years old, who has potential to grow, I think that makes sense as a backup option to whoever is the main man leading the forward line next season. But it doesn't seem like it'll be Mateta, but I think that will be someone else. People are talking about Ranieri. He's already gone to Marseille, so that's not going to be happening. That story lasted about 30 seconds, so I'm not going to be talking about that. So yeah, let's see. Much more sense to get Strand Larsen proven in the Premier League. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's proven in the Premier League because he hasn't done that over seasons, but I would say if he plays as he did in his first season at Wolves, he can definitely score goals. He's proven it. He's proven it that he can score goals in the Premier League for one season. But if I was to say a proven Premier League striker, I think you have to do it for more than one season. He hasn't had a great season so far, but I've already listed the reasons why I think that hasn't happened. And I think Strand Larsen would suit a Glasner-esque striker, but yeah, I don't know about the manager situation, which we're going to actually get into. It was a nice segue to talk about the manager situation. I'm just going to try to add timestamps to the videos as well. So I'm trying to keep note of everything that we're talking about. So yeah, that is with the striker news. But if you haven't already done so, people, please do hit the like button. I don't know how many likes we're on right now, but it has been helping us out massively. And of course, we are here to cover all the latest that will be going on with Palace. It has been going on with Palace, but today has been a busy day, even before 6 p.m. So I thought might as well jump on early. Anything that happens from here beyond, unless it's something drastic, we'll be covering it tomorrow. So yeah, Crystal Palace Football Club have lost the plot. I don't know what we're cooking, but yeah, it just seems a bit crazy. We have 3 billionaires behind the face of Parish. In my opinion, Parish isn't the issue. It's them not stumping the cash for him to spend. Food for all. Yeah, there is that, but we will talk about that a bit later on if people want to get into that. So let's talk about the manager news, and this one is very exciting, very exciting, and I don't think it's a possibility, but we'll still mention it. According to Sami Mokbel, who is a respected journalist for the BBC and has been reporting Palace stories for a while, Crystal Palace are among the clubs monitoring Bournemouth manager Iraola as they explore candidates to replace Oliver Glasner. Iraola's contract expires in the summer. Now, this is a exciting news. However, how hopeful I am of this, that's a different question. But Iraola from Bournemouth, his contract is also, going to expire in the summer. Could he replace Oliver Glasner? Look, I think Bournemouth to Palace is a step up. So there is that. We are a bigger club than Bournemouth. If we were to play in European football, I think that would be a positive as well. I don't think Bournemouth will be playing any European football next season. They started the season great, and then they've dropped off. They've sold a lot of players. So in terms of like what we expect in a manager to be able to handle, he's handled it okay. He hasn't handled it greatly, but they have lost the whole back line, Bournemouth, and they're still there and about getting results and not completely down there. They're pretty much in the same wavelength as Palace. Now, 2 points I'm thinking on top of that is, what does Iraola think of Glasner's comments towards the board? Because they're not good comments, and this is where the damage can be done at times. Of course, if he was serious about joining Palace, he'll go speak to the board himself and go from there. So, yeah, but it's still fault for me anyways, because Glasner has said a lot of stuff about the Palace board, which may put off managers. And 2, Iraola has been linked with big clubs. However, his stock has dropped. Well, it feels like it anyways. His stock seems like he has dropped with how Bournemouth have been performing recently. And I think that's very harsh, because I do think he's a very good manager. And as I mentioned, they've lost a lot of players and they've been struggling with the adjustment of that. And I would love Iraola at Palace. Absolutely love him at Palace, because he's worked at a club with limited resources. Yes, Bournemouth have spent money, but they've sold a lot of players as well to spend that money, which is what Palace will be doing in the first place. He knows the Premier League. You know what to expect from him. Funny enough, he's also likes to play direct football. So he may not play the same formation, but in terms of player profiles, it makes it a bit more easier to manage, especially with a new manager coming in. If you bring in a possession-based manager, you may look at some of the players in the squad. Wait a minute. He might be a good option as it currently is, but would he be a good option in this new system? But with Iraola, we should be able to transfer over quite well. And also, I don't know. I honestly don't know about the wages between managers. I'm not going to sit here and say so, but I wouldn't surprise me if this is true. Iraola to Glasner's wages. Glasner earns more than double, according to reports. So if that's the case, you can give him a nice pay increase as well. Move to London. Pay increase to a bigger club. Those tick the boxes. However, there is a other element, and that's why I'm not too sure. I don't know how Iraola thinks about Palace. The only people that will know is Iraola himself, of course. I don't know what he thinks about our current situation. I don't know what he thinks about his next job prospect situation, because Iraola to Palace would be a step up, but he also has been linked with taking multiple steps up his career, you know, joining one of the bigger clubs with bigger resources. So is he willing to leave Bournemouth? I know his contract runs out in the summer. Funny enough, you know, when you're comparing Glasner to Iraola lost a lot of players. Yes, they just, you know, they brought in players, but I haven't ever heard of Iraola come out publicly as our current manager has throughout the season and talk the way he has. So I guess he ticks a box for Steve Parish and having a manager that can stay more composed. He doesn't seem like a man, from what I've seen anyways, of, you know, the one to come out publicly and expose the club's businesses. So yeah, I wouldn't, you know, if the weight is Iraola, then I guess the weight is worth it. And that's what I was saying when the first show we started with all of this Glasner stuff. You know, what if our current manager that we want is already employed by a football club? There's no way Iraola leaves Bournemouth to join Palace, you know, during the season. But nice name to be involved with. But I don't know how true that will be. So yeah. What else have we got? Let me go through the comments. Bigger clubs will come calling for Iraola. That's what I think as well. However, that interest right now seems like it has died down. A few months ago, it was Glasner and Iraola for the United job and for all the other, you know, jobs, that the big club jobs. But I don't really see Iraola's name getting mentioned as much. And I think that might be down to recency bias with what's happening with Bournemouth. So yeah. But I do like him anyways. Never going to get him. No Palace fan is dreaming anymore. It's all a nightmare. Time for some good news. Season is a write-off. For all of Dougie's flaws, the last 12 months have shown we really need someone like Dougie behind the scenes. Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying I'm against Dougie. I'm just saying Dougie's not at the football club. So the initial point that we made about bringing in someone because Dougie wanted him, we're not building a squad around what Dougie's vision is. So it's around someone else's vision. So I don't know if we should go off Dougie's work for that. But yeah, what do you lot think about Iraola potentially to Palace? I think that would be the best case scenario, but that depends on if he would first of all want to sign at Bournemouth rather than come to Palace. It just depends on where Iraola's mind is at, but I think it's more unlikely to happen than likely. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, because the next manager who has been linked with a potential move to Palace is also employed, but is employed by a championship club, and it is currently Romanesse's manager, and that is Frank Lampard. I don't know how much I want to believe this story, in all honesty, but Frank Lampard, according to TalkSport, is likely to be a strong contender to replace Oliver Glasner at Palace. Palace owner Steve Parish was a big admirer of Lampard even before parachuting Coventry to the top of the championship. Lampard doesn't really excite me as much, to be fair. I've seen some Palace fans saying that they're not against it. I don't know if that's desperation more than anything. But yeah, he doesn't excite me as much. We've seen him at Everton. You have managers who can do it in lower leagues, such as the Championship, which is a very difficult league, but the Premier League is a different ball game. So I'd rather go down a different route than Frank Lampard. But if you want to believe TalkSport, then they've mentioned it. But yeah, here we are currently. I'm not really a fan of this. Lampard terrifies me, says Ben. I don't blame you. Don't want Lampard. So I think we're all in agreement that we don't want Lampard. Interesting to see if anyone does want Lampard, because I've seen some people say they do. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Lampard. McKenna's an interesting one. You know, he's been linked with other clubs as well, but he decided to stay at Ipswich. So yeah, Lampard won't leave Coventry if they're promoted. Yeah, potentially not, but we don't know that. We don't. He might be willing to join Palace over Coventry if you're looking at, you know, a Premier League club that's been in this position, because of course it's going to be difficult. But yeah, he's still a name that's been mentioned. So yeah, Lampard will give me nightmares, and I think we should end the Lampard talk right there. If you haven't done so, if you are enjoying the show, please do hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here. Thank you to each and every single one of you that has done that so far. And before we wrap up, if anyone has any questions, please put a Q and a dot before it. We'll go through it now and wrap up, basically. But yeah, if there's any questions, let me know. And yeah, there are some comments about Jose Mourinho. I'll be honest, no. I've seen him at Fenerbahce, and I think, for what he's done in his career, great manager. Maybe if you asked me about 5 or 6 years ago, then I would have said yes. But from what I've seen of him recently, no. I'm just not a massive fan. I just feel like his style of management isn't quite working with how modern football is going. So yeah, it sounds it sounds exciting in terms of name-wise, but in reality-wise, from what I've seen of his job in Turkey, and I've seen even with Benfica, there's been a few moments I would honestly skip. So yeah, if just literally answer that one from Monty. Animal saying, how are you feeling about all of this? Honestly, about what? About the situation? There's so much feelings. If you're asking me about, Mateta to Villa, I would say if we get the money, which I don't think we will, from Aston Villa directly, then if he wants to leave, I'm not against it, as long as we get the money. But I don't want Evan Guessand. If you're asking me about Iraola, I would love it, but I'm not as hopeful, because I do think Glasner's comments haven't been great. But then again, I've listed some I think decent points why he might want to move to Palace already. So my moods are just all over the place. It's depending on each story right now. But right now, if you ask me about my overall mood for Palace, I think I would describe it with, or even a word to describe the situation at Palace, it seems like chaos. That's what it feels like right now, chaos. We have uncertainty with key players. We have uncertainty with the manager situation. It just feels like a house that is burning. A fire started. The fire's not quite there yet, where it's like, all right, cool. It's like a little kitchen fire. However, if we don't have it under control, you could have the house burning soon. That's what it feels like right now with Palace, because there is so much uncertainty. So these are important moments, and that's the reason why when I was talking about Guessand, for example, if you're losing Mateta and you're bringing in Guessand, I don't think that is worth that risk. I don't think it is worth that risk. So yeah, it does feel a bit crazy. I just want to sleep at this point till the summer. Simon saying, does it really matter who we have as a manager when we don't totally invest in their scheme? No, of course it matters who we have as a manager. I think the manager, this has actually happened with Palace. I know Glasner's not happy with the transfers or the lack of transfers and what happened with Gahey, but we have brought in players for Glasner. It's not like Palace have completely abandoned what Glasner likes, the word he likes to use. Glasner, he feels like that because of the Gahey situation. But we have brought in players maybe that Palace would have not wanted as much, but Glasner wanted. So yeah, I think both the manager and the club need to work well together. But of course, I think the problem with Glasner and Palace is that he's wanted more. And that's what we can't offer him. But in terms of working together for player profiles, I think we've done a good job. We've done a good job to go down his route, because it seems like a few of these players are Glasner options. So yeah, and those options, some of them have worked, Lacroix and Kamada, for example. So yeah, both the club and the manager needs to work well together. Where do we actually go from here? I don't trust Glasner to not throw the Conference League to get his point across. As much as he's caused a fuss, as much as he's cried, there's no way he will throw the Conference League, if we're being realistic or anything. Because at this point, after his emotional tantrum, I think he might have realized, or if he hasn't realized, he's a very silly man that, hold on, wait a minute. I've tried to get sacked from Crystal Palace. I haven't got sacked, but I now look like a bit of a fool, because you're speaking that publicly about all the business that's going on within the football club. Us as fans is fine. But if I'm another owner from a Premier League club, I'm a Man United owner, I am not going anywhere near Glasner. I'm sorry. After what Amram did at Man United, you want to go to Glasner after speaking like this? So Glasner has actually caused more damage for himself, as well as other people involved. And of course, it's not Glasner versus Parish debate. They're both at 4. I'm not going to get into that. But Glasner needs to get his stocks back up and needs to try and find a way to, back himself, because these comments have hurt him. Trust me, they have hurt him. And I'll be very curious to see what job he lands in next. If it is a Premier League job, I'll be surprised if it's one of the big clubs, the likes of United and it's not going to be Chelsea, but you know what I mean, or Tottenham. Yeah, I don't know how he would survive that, especially with their owners. But yeah, let's see. But I don't suspect he'll throw the Conference League. He would love to win it because it only benefits him further, as much as us, of course. I'd love for us to win the Conference League. But at this point onwards, Friday, I'm already expecting an apology from Glasner. Don't really care about the apology, in all honesty. I want to see how the players react to it. But yeah, he's the Uches and the other players that are on the bench. I don't know how they're going to be training. I don't know how they feel towards Glasner. A lot of things have been said, so there's different parties involved. But trust me, he does want to win the Conference League. He would love to win the Conference League because it helps him further. Glasner can go unbeaten run. Let's go. Hopefully locks in, and that does happen. That would be amazing. United ain't going for Glasner. I think they want Tuchel or Nagelsmann since the contracts end after World Cup. Yeah, I would be shocked if he ends up at Man United. There's no way those owners would want Glasner. No way. Yeah, exactly. It would be a fool to throw the Conference League. It doesn't benefit him. And he just needs to get on with his job. He wanted a sack. It didn't work out. And here we are. We just have to move on. Penny of a thought for Ismail Assar, who's coming back. Congrats to him, of course, for winning the AFCONs. He'll be back at Palace, but last time Ismail Assar was at Palace, we was in the Carabao Cup, we was in the FA Cup, and we was doing relatively well in the league. And yeah, he's coming back to this mess. So yeah, hopefully he's enjoying his times because we're going to need him at Palace, especially on the weekend. But I did see that he went live on his Instagram, so I don't know when he'll actually be returning to Palace. I don't know if he'll get a few days off as well, but hopefully. Well, tomorrow's Wednesday. Well, Wednesday or Thursday. Tomorrow or Thursday, he can join us. But yeah, Sarr and Munoz will be back. They will be back. But will they be ready to start? I think Sarr, it's not a problem. Sarr hasn't had an injury. He's just gone to AFCONs. But Munoz, we have to be careful. We have to be very careful because we've seen how much we've missed him, right? And if you rush him back, which I don't think Glasner will do or Palace will do, and he aggravates the injury and it doesn't help no one. So we have to be careful with him. I wonder how many minutes Munoz can play. So yeah, I don't think it's all straight away. Oh, Munoz and Sarr's back. Well, Munoz is back, but how back is he? We'll find out with his minutes and how much he can play. But yeah, how will the fans react at Selhurst? I don't know. I really don't know how the fans will react. There is a division right now based on social media, but Selhurst is a different game, right? Social media doesn't reflect the match-going fans. I'll be there against Chelsea. But yeah, I really don't know how the majority will react. Some may be upset. Some may be singing Glasner's name. Some may be singing Parish's name. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, is Cherif done? Is Cherif deal done? No, it's not done. So yeah, according to reports, we're still off the evaluation. But yeah, go check out the start of the show and you'll find out all the latest transfer reports as well. That's it from me today. If there's anything else that pops up that is significant, it'll be covered. If not, we'll be back tomorrow for the latest Palace news episode. That's it. And if you have enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and until next time, up the Palace.